the Taliban's big PR stunts.
Now, Taliban fighters are seen enjoying amongst themselves after their stunning takeover of Afghanistan. They're being spotted at ice cream parlors, amusement parks, dancing, singing, even as an uneasy calm prevails on the streets of Kabul. Let's take a look at this ground report.
Afghanistan taken over. Now it's time to chill.
The Taliban is coming for the ice cream.
And what better than a scoop of ice cream to cool off? After terrorizing the citizens of Afghanistan, Taliban fighters were spotted at an ice cream parlor in Kabul.
Some Talibans come on and they eat the ice cream, and after they eating the ice cream they are going from here. And they come here, eat the ice cream. They don't have any problem with the people, so every man, woman come and buy, eat the ice cream.
But the scoop of Taliban terror is just a tip of the iceberg. There's an uneasy calm in the capital city. From the grocery shops to bird markets. Gun-toting Taliban fighters are everywhere.
By the control of the Taliban, the sick people is come to our shops and they are open his shops and normal life and starting our work after 4 days of the control of the Taliban.
With the Mujahideens in charge, minorities fear persecution. Manjeet Singh, who owns a shop across the road from a Gurdwara, is worried about what the future holds. It's all fun and games right now. But how long before Taliban reveals its true colors? With Naveed Sultani from Kabul, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, the Taliban 2.0 are on a PR offensive. From addressing a press conference to promising amnesty to assuring women of equal rights, Taliban are doing their best to portray a liberal version of themselves. But the ground reality right now is far from what they show. And probably it's not the ideology, but the use of communication tools now that has really changed for the Taliban in 2021.
We would like to assure them that there's not going to be any discrimination against women, but of course within the frameworks that we have.
زودتر ادعاءات دولتی بیشتر فعال خواهد شد. تمام کارمندا خواهد آمدن با شمول اوناس ان شاء الله بخشای مختلفی که برشان تعیین است یا قوانین اسلام و شریعت اجازه میده.
Hearing them might make you wonder if they are really the deadly Taliban. Is this the good version of Taliban? Have the Taliban changed for real? Or is this a well-choreographed PR stunt? Those who have experienced life under Taliban's guns say there's nothing to feel good about the terrorist group. Rights under Sharia law, no matter how liberal, will limit work opportunities for women, both in numbers and sectors. Girls might be allowed to go to school, but it will be a Quranic school most of the times. Once they become teenagers, education stops altogether. Speaking exclusively to India Today, the Malala Award winner and rights activist Pashtana Durrani says Taliban's interpretation of Sharia is extremely misogynistic, racist and patriarchal.
So people are fearful rather than thinking about other things like educationalist or all that. It's a humanitarian crisis right now, and they're worried about tents. They're worried about the heat, no cleaning water. What are they going to do about the Taliban? Will they survive it? What will be their verdict? Can they go back to their homes? It's like a lot of uncertainty.
Governor Salima Mazari's detention confirms the fears of Pashtana. The activist is currently in hiding after having escaped from the Taliban forces in Kandahar. Taliban's announcement of amnesty also does not cut ice. India Today has extensively covered how interpreters and service workers are systematically targeted by the Taliban. Taliban in their PR exercise have given interviews to women journalists. Private broadcasters like Tolo News have put women journalists back on air. But on the other hand, they have replaced women anchors with men government-run channels. Taliban's elaborate image overhaul exercise has brought to your screens its fighters eating ice cream, playing in amusement parks, and working out in gyms. They even tweeted an image of girls on their way to school on August 16th, though a majority of schools are yet to open in Afghanistan. What has changed probably is not the Taliban's ideology, but their use of communication tools. From social media to mainstream media, the Taliban are on a charm offensive. The real test will begin when the Taliban begin ruling the country. After all, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. With Sai Kiran Kannan, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, in an unexpected event there, the Afghanistan Taliban addressed a press conference and they said that they wanted peaceful relations with other countries and would respect the rights of women within the framework of the Islamic Sharia law. Here's a listen.
The Taliban held their first official news conference in Kabul on Tuesday since the shocking, swift seizure of the city, claiming they wanted peaceful relations with other countries and, despite past harsh treatment of women that included public stonings, vowed they would respect women's rights within the framework of Islamic law.
Women will be afforded all their rights, whether it is in work or other activities, because women are a key part of society. And we are guaranteeing all their rights within the limits of Islam.
The militant group also said Afghans who had worked with the U.S. and allied forces as translators or in similar roles had a home within the new regime.
As for their talents and their skills, we do not want them to leave the country. We want them to serve their own homeland.
Locals gathered around television sets to watch the press conference, like these men in a Kabul pool hall.
I am worried and hope there will be peace, stability, and a good system in the country. There is a lot of anarchy in the current government, so let's see what the Taliban will do for us.
The Taliban's conciliatory tone contrasted sharply with comments by Afghan First Vice President Amrullah Saleh, who served under President Ashraf Ghani prior to Ghani fleeing the country. Saleh on Tuesday declared himself the, quote, legitimate caretaker president of Afghanistan and vowed that he would not bow to Kabul's new rulers. The Taliban news conference came as U.S. and Western allies rushed to evacuate diplomats and civilians from Afghanistan, one day after chaotic scenes at the Kabul airport of desperate Afghans trying to flee. The Taliban in their press conference said families trying to leave the country should return home and that nothing would happen to them. Some Kabul residents on Tuesday cautiously ventured back to work. Many shops were shuttered, schools closed, and traffic was light, but there were several pickup trucks with white flags carrying Taliban gunmen and commanders stationed at checkpoints.
Now, Afghan women have taken to the streets, social media, a desperate cry for help. They have been affected by the changing fate of the country in the worst possible way. Their life, their liberty, their dignity have all been snatched away during the previous Taliban rule. And 20 years later, despite announced assurances, they dread for their life. Here's their story in their voice.
There was war. Bombs were being dropped. My father was killed there and a lot of my relatives were killed as well, and we had to flee. I was responsible for my children and I didn't want them to be killed. So I came here with my elderly mother.
She huddles with her 3 sons and a daughter in a makeshift shelter in a camp on the outskirts of Mazar-e-Sharif. Her family is among the 330,000 Afghans displaced by war since the start of the year.
This is a staggering statistic. 80% of those fleeing are women, children, babies among them. It's a dire situation, and we're urging, this is why it's so important that the situation needs attention. These people need support. The situation, it's very fluid and volatile.
Mariam is an Afghan widow in her late 20s. She was a mere child when the Taliban had last ruled over Afghanistan. As a child, she had known the draconian Taliban diktats against women and girls. They had no rights and no standing in the society then. Now the return of Taliban means Mariam's preteen eldest son is the head of the family.
We want a normal life just like everyone else. I want my children to become something in Afghanistan, to become doctors, engineers or something. That is my hope.
No one was allowed to go to the market without a male escort. For those who have a male escort, it is fine. But what happens when those who do not have a male escort? How can they carry on with their daily lives? They may not even have husbands. A lot of women have lost their young husbands, and now they are mostly in their 20s or maybe 25 years of age and have no one to look after them. How will they survive?
Majority of the Afghan women, they don't have reliable source of income. Majority of them have some sort of work going on for them, and some of them have lost their husbands in war, either in the army side or the Taliban side, and they work. So I'm not sure how is that going to help them.
35-year-old Nilofer used to be a school teacher. She now lives with her family in a camp for internally displaced people in a public park in Kabul.
A couple of girls were inside a tuk-tuk driving from their tuition center to their home. On the way, they were stopped and lashed by the Taliban because they were wearing revealing sandals, and they were told by them that you are wearing these to attract young men. During the last Taliban era, my mother took me out to buy me ice cream. I witnessed my mother getting lashed by the Taliban for revealing her face for a couple of minutes. I can never forget the feeling of helplessness in spite of being a little child then. Today again, I feel that if Taliban come to power, we will return back to the same dark days.
Constitutional gains that we had, even if they were not put in practice, we were able to use them. As for example, if you cannot vote in the rural areas, you could have voted in the city. If you couldn't access the schools in rural areas, you could have accessed them in the city. These are something that makes me worried. The right to work, like girls in banks, they are sent to home and asked to send in their male relatives instead of them to fill in for their positions, which is so wrong because you studied all your life and just in one day you lose your job, your livelihood, and then a male has to provide for you, even if they are not related to you or they are just related to you by blood and they don't even care what you do.
Afghan women, educated or not, working or housewife, all dread the imminent loss of their human status. Under the Taliban, they stop being considered a human being.
While I see that we are on the verge of losing everything, I have really lost my hope, and during these days, I'm just trying to get my friends together so that we can sit together and share our future plans, so that if any of us make it alive from this situation, we can fulfill those plans. I even ask for forgiveness from some of my friends if I have ever done them wrong. Because if the Taliban come, none of us will survive. I have nothing else to say. I know we will get killed. I feel that we are like a bird who makes a nest for a living and spends all the time building it, but then suddenly and helplessly watch others destroy it, and then everything vanishes. I have a bad feeling, and it is the same feeling that other women have.
Now, the Taliban have returned to Afghanistan after a gap of 25 years. What are the differences and the similarities in the current regime and the one that ruled back in 1996 all the way to 2021 this time? Here's a report on that.
It was in 1996 when Taliban stormed Kabul for the very first time, unleashing a wave of destruction, human rights abuses, killings, medieval torture, oppression of women during its 5-year reign of terror. Women were denied education and jobs and were forced to wear head-to-toe coverings or abayas. It unleashed cultural genocide by obliterating Bamiyan Buddha statues and persecuting minorities. Before being ousted by US-led forces in a bloody military campaign 5 years later. 25 years on, history is having a scary rerun with the return of Taliban to Kabul, unleashing fresh chaos, exodus, deaths, enforcement of strict Islamic laws, and the subjugation of women again. But this time, the terror machinery of Taliban is trying to project a somewhat changed face, promising better ties with neighboring countries, Sharia-inspired jobs for women.
Our leaders are involved in serious discussions, and in the near future, we will witness a political settlement, and we will have a strong Islamic inclusive system which is acceptable by all Afghans. I would like to give assurance to all foreign countries, their embassies, their staffers, political representatives, the United Nations agencies, that no one will take any steps against them. They won't be harmed. Our forces would work for the security day and night.
But all of these are mere posturings aimed at a makeover bid to hoodwink the West. Taliban have already started unleashing savagery on the Afghan people. After firing at an Afghan at the Kabul airport, Taliban opened fire on residents of Nangarhar after a bid to take down the Afghan flag was met with resistance. Women who stood up to Taliban are also being hunted down. One of the first women governors in Afghanistan, Salima Mazari, who took up arms to fight the Taliban, has reportedly been captured. When many Afghan political leaders fled, Salima had stayed on till the fall of Balkh province when her district of Chehrkand fell to the Taliban. Taliban have also resumed its cultural genocide, razing the statue of minority Hazara leader Abdul Ali Mazari in Bamiyan. Mazari was butchered by Taliban in 1995. During its march to Kabul, Taliban had asked local populations in conquered provinces to hand over young girls and women for their fighters to marry. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, after taking Kabul, the Taliban are quite having a field day there. Visuals coming in of them exercising in the presidential palace gym, to playing volleyball in the park, to enjoying ice creams at parlors, dancing, singing to Western music. The Taliban there having quite a day out in Kabul, unmindful of the global outrage currently over their actions.
The battle-hardened jihadis, fresh from a stunning victory, out to savor the moment in Kabul, enjoying ice cream with Kalashnikovs slung from their arms, riding bumper cars at amusement parks, playing volleyball, then turning to swings,
even shaking a leg to Western music. It's Taliban's day out in Kabul. Unmindful of the global outrage and shock, the Taliban are living it up big time, reveling in the newfound stature.
The security of government administrations is our priority right now, so those places are secured. We assure everyone that very soon all the governmental office will start their work.
The locals are often seen joining in, taking selfies with the Mujahideen. Some say with Taliban in power, they're at least assured of an end to the constant fighting.
The one thing I can say is that there is security in the city. People are going about their daily business easily and happily. Before, we are not sure whether we could make a life at home or not. I think when everything is controlled by one side, it is better, and I'm very happy.
Earlier, the world witnessed the invading militia inside the fallen presidential palace, exercising in the president's gym with the fitness equipment and weights. Some jihadis were also seen training on CrossFits. While others lazily sprawled on the elaborate and ornate sofas with automatic weapons and rocket launchers in hand. Images which showed the outside world the changed ground reality and rule of the game in Afghanistan. Bureau Report, India Today.
I'm going to leave you with those visuals there, but for now it's a wrap on this bulletin. Do log on to indiatoday.in for more news and updates. You can also download our app for more. Stay tuned. I'm going to come back with the top headlines.